Good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and Matthew. I know you're fired up, buddy. You just finished a long form story, which hopefully we'll be able to read soon, on the Pro Bowl, and it's a very unique situation. And rather than me talk about it, let's give you the give you the deck, and then I'll respond when the time comes.
Yeah, it's actually out on Sports Talk Florida now.
Oh, okay.
So it is available to read on Sports Talk Florida now. But the the Pro Bowl in and of itself, and I'm going to preface this argument by saying, like this isn't a Pro Bowl exclusive. This can apply to the MLB All Star Game to an extent. It definitely applies to the NBA All Star Game as well. But the Pro Bowl game now, especially, it's an altered format of football. Like they're not playing the sport that they normally
Mhm.
play for the entirety of their regular season. They've fundamentally changed the sport that they're playing in terms of flag football, and it's year over year since that change had decreasing viewership. So, what is the NFL? The NFL is an entertainment industry. That's
Mhm.
their goal. Their goal is to produce numbers, and then their numbers that they produce, they then turn around and show to advertisers and sell ad spots and generate revenue. Obviously, that's how it goes throughout all 32 NFL franchises, or 30 NFL franchises. Pardon me. Um, so, no, it's 32. I was
It's
right.
32 NFL franchise. It's 30 baseball franchises.
Yeah, it's 32. Which is fine. Like you want to put out a good product, but it far too long I feel like we've acknowledged the Pro Bowl game as some career defining accolade that in actuality it isn't. Like this thing boils down to a popularity contest when you really look at it. Like this is something that that has proved, I feel like, time and time again. Like these guys now, we're getting down to like sixth, seventh alternates in
Mhm.
terms of guys that are making the Pro Bowl. People got up in arms when Shador Sanders made the Pro Bowl just a couple days ago. And it was something that I kind of stewed on and wanted to find the right angle for. But
Mhm.
Shador Sanders making the Pro Bowl for the NFL's purposes, and honestly for the purposes of the Pro Bowl, is a fantastic choice. It is the correct
Mhm.
choice. It is the choice that you should make every single time when you are in the situation the NFL's in. Shador Sanders is a young guy who's intriguing and has like a cult like following on social media.
Mhm.
He's a guy that is going to bring viewership to the game because people like to watch or want to watch Shador Sanders play football. He's
Mhm.
also a guy that might bring viewers because there's a term that's become more popularized over the last couple of years. It's called hate watching, where people will turn
Mhm.
on like games just because they
Right.
want to see the other team or a certain player fail.
Right.
Um, I've done it before when the Yankees have had bad stretches. I
Mhm.
absolutely I'll toss on a Yankees game if they're getting blown out of the building.
Right.
That's I feel like sometimes as sports fans that's your human nature. So he's going to generate eyeballs and he's going to generate viewership numbers. That's great. That's fine. And it's fine only under the pretense that we treat this thing as what it actually is. It's a popularity contest, it's an exhibition, and it's a showcase of what
Mhm.
the league has to offer to its fans. Like it's nothing more than that. So are the All Star games and the MLB and the NBA. Like these are showcases. These
Mhm.
are extracurriculars that players typically don't necessarily want to play in. And there's an understandable aspect of that, but I feel like far too often it's used as this career defining accolade.
Mhm.
They're going to induct a Pro Football Hall of Fame class on August 8th this year, and when they do that, they're going to list off the accolades of these players, and then amongst those accolades, they're going to list Pro Bowl appearances.
Mhm.
And this doesn't apply for, I think, the older generations, really probably prior to somewhere in the neighborhood of the 2000s. I feel like Pro Bowls is fine as something that you use as an accolade and career
Mhm.
defining accolade. But as you get closer and closer, and especially as it shifted to a flag football game,
Mhm.
it's not something that you can use as an accolade. And I went through, and I think we have a really good case study on a guy who is one of the odds on favorites to win the MVP this year, and that's
Mhm.
Matthew Stafford. Um, I went through and I was just looking at some seasons just to see because he only has three career Pro Bowl appearances. So Shador Sanders now has one third of Matthew Stafford's Pro Bowl appearances.
Right.
Matthew Stafford is top 10 in passing yards and top 10 in passing touchdowns in the league. That's fine. But this is where I draw issue on it. Is there are 3 seasons that I'm going to give you. These are blind resumes. I'm going to give you the 3 seasons, and I want you to tell me which season Matthew Stafford made the Pro Bowl in. So we've got
Okay.
season A. Matthew Stafford's team had a 9-6 record. He had a 62.6% completion percentage. He
Hmm.
threw for 3,965 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Season
Okay.
B, Matthew Stafford's team had a 12-5 record. He had a 67.2% completion percentage. He threw for 4,886 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. Season C, Matthew Stafford's team had a 10-6 record. His completion percentage was 63.5%. He threw for 5,038 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. Jim, which of those 3 seasons do you think Matthew Stafford made the Pro Bowl team?
The 9 and 7 one. A.
Yes, that would be correct. That is the season that Matthew Stafford won, or not won. That was the season that Matthew Stafford made the Pro Bowl team. The second season that I listed off, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. And the third season that I listed off was in 2011 when Matthew Stafford was coming off of an injury that ended his season prior. And he threw for 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. And he won NFL Comeback Player of the Year. But he did not make a Pro Bowl either of those 2 seasons. 2 of his Pro Bowls have came since he's been in LA after he won a Super Bowl, in which you get that popularity boost where
Hmm.
he's a little bit more of a household name now. This is
Right.
a guy who has proved throughout his career what kind of a quarterback he is. His only problem was that he was playing in Detroit and not
Right.
LA or New York.
Right. No, to your point, let's go back in time. When this used to mean something, okay, there were players who really wanted to make the Pro Bowl, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the Pro Bowl shift in the 80s, moving into the early 90s, things got Hawaii got involved,
Mm-hmm.
and what the deal was is Hawaii paid the NFL to to bring the players over. In other words, they flew them over, they put the families up, they made it a very, family oriented thing, and players played, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they took pride in it. They took pride in representing their team and their conference. As time went by, and we should note this, that the Pro Bowl game has always been played before the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there are guys who make the Pro Bowl, obviously, from the Super Bowl teams who aren't going to play in the Pro Bowl and
Yeah.
then go and play the Super Bowl. So, as that started to, the bloom was off the rose after a while. It's like, it's great to go to Hawaii. It's great to have the family. It's great to go over there. It's great to participate against, your competition. They moved it back to Orlando because, frankly, the stadium in Hawaii had gotten so bad that they couldn't really play in it.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're in Orlando. They're at Disney World. It's not as interesting anymore. Players don't want to get hurt. They're not as interested in it. They're like, okay, it doesn't mean much to me anymore.
Yeah.
Used to be that if you made the Pro Bowl, that was a you might benefit financially from it from a standpoint of in your contract. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but once it left Hawaii, they
Mm-hmm.
had a problem. The NFL had a problem. Now the
Yeah.
NFL always had a problem with the Pro Bowl because nobody watches it. Okay,
Yeah.
it has not been watched in any significant manner since the mid 1980s. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
people understand. Okay, fine. It's just a football game I can watch between the championship game and the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they had rules which didn't allow you to blitz, or they didn't want to get big, get hurt. Okay, fine. So fast forward, what do? Well, they've done the Manning thing where they've done that routine. The NFL has tried to come up with a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at other sports, okay, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, the top rated, when the NBA plays that Super Bowl, that their weekend, right? The skills competition outrates the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to see the 3-point shooting tournament. You want to see the skills, tournament, the dribbling and shooting into that routine, and you want to see the slam dunk tournament. Okay, I could care less who wins the All Star game.
Yep.
Okay, which defense is very optional. It's just watching a bunch of very talented guys play street ball. Okay, the one Netflix just paid the Major League Baseball a ton of money for the home run derby.
Mm-hmm.
Fox offered the opportunity, should they wish to bid for it, for the All Star game. Because the All Star game hasn't really, the All Star game for baseball does mean something to the players,
Mm-hmm.
very much so, and it means something to win. But you know, in that package, Fox were willing to say, all right, if you want to buy the game from us, we'll sell it to you, but otherwise, we're going to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And Netflix decided not to. Netflix bought the home run derby and said, you know what, we're good. That's what we want. So the only one ratings wise, and let's go back for a moment to hockey, which we didn't mention.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey has done probably the smartest thing of anything. They have put involved in their skills competition some absolutely crazy stuff. Okay, they had they had it in Vegas a couple years ago, or a year. Maybe it was a year. Maybe it was last year. They literally, part of the deal was, right. They had a thing where guys slap shots were skipping across the pond at the Bellagio Hotel. So you're how many? It was like, how many times could you get the puck? Could you get it from one side of the Bellagio pool to the other side of the Bellagio pool? I mean, they came up with some crazy fun to watch things. I mean, it was entertaining. They, they do the speed skating thing. They do the a number of gimmicks. All right, but the gimmicks are fun to watch, and fans watch that. The hockey game itself, the All Star game, yeah, okay, it's entertaining, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not as entertaining. The NBA All Star isn't entertaining. The Pro Bowl is entertaining. The Major League Baseball, as I said, it does hold. It actually, to me, made a lot more sense when Selig put in there whoever won that game got home field advantage for the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That really put, that was a serious situation from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, and I attended the All Star game as a kid, the year that Pete Rose took Ray Fosse out, and I mean, the old school guys back in the day, they never played. Once there was when interleague play started, that kind of made the All Star game a little bit less of a, because the National League players never got to play against the American League players,
Mm-hmm.
only in the World Series. So that was your point. That was bragging rights. I mean, serious bragging rights.
Mm-hmm.
So when they started playing interleague, it became a little less important, and it still has some importance because I know the players desperately want to be on that team. And there was a time when, if you recall, way back, when fans got an opportunity to vote, and the fan vote was, important, and you got Cincinnati and St. Louis stuffing the ballot boxes so that you had the majority of players on the starting team were from Cincinnati and Phil, and St. Louis. Uh, but there was a time, and I still believe, because I've spoken to a number of Major League Baseball players, they desperately want to make the All Star team, and that means something to them. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what makes the most part of the interesting part of that is it's the Latin players, it's the Japanese players. They look at this as going, they want to be considered the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's nothing to some of these guys. Paul Skeens, perfect example. He desperately wants to make the All Star team.
Hmm.
Why? Because he wants to be known as the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
And so it does mean something in some sports. It has less meaning. Do you think LeBron James cares
No,
if he makes the All Star team?
no,
I
I,
mean,
I don't think he was
or
heartbreaking
Steph Curry?
at all. Yeah, I don't think they care. They view it as what it is, and what it is their exhibition matches. Like
Mhm.
that's what they are. Um, and you make a good point about the players caring. I think the players caring impacts what you see on the field. But
Mhm.
like the MLB isn't secure from things like this Shador thing. Like
No.
I go back to last year and the All Star team, and most of it's good players. But then you look and on the NL side, Jacob Mizorowski's pitching. He'd started 4 games for the Brewers
Mhm.
in that season. He hadn't put together a body of work, but what was Jacob Mizorowski? Jacob Mizorowski was young. He was exciting. He was going to be a fan draw because the kid throws
Mhm.
103 miles an hour as a starting
Right.
pitcher. Like that's going to get you eyeballs. Same way Paul
Mhm.
Skeens gets you eyeballs. He gets you eyeballs because he can throw gas.
Mhm.
So I think the crux of my argument is not whether or not the players care, but it's how do they get to this spot. And when you have these fan votes and stuff like that, it can take away from stuff like that, because there are years you can go back throughout Matthew Stafford's career and say, well, yeah, he was probably a Pro Bowler. Now, granted, what I didn't go do is I didn't go check who made the Pro Bowl and what their numbers were
Mhm.
in the years that Matthew Stafford didn't, and that definitely plays a factor
Mhm.
to an extent. But the matter of the fact is that this is still a fan vote. Like these are still voted on by fans. This is still
Mhm.
a pretty arbitrary system, all things considered, for getting these guys into these games and playing in these games. And I don't mind it. Like this is a good model for them. Like you
Mhm.
absolutely want to generate eyes. And again, you talked about the Pro Bowl. This is not the first time for the Pro Bowl. This is a record low since
Mhm.
2006. In
Right.
2006, the numbers were still below 4 million in terms of viewership.
Mhm.
So it's not like unheard of failure in terms of what
No.
football is. Um, but you go on and you treat these things as career defining accolades, and that's where I draw issue, because they shouldn't be career defining. They can't be voted on by like a group of your peers getting you in. Like I think this year, Ryan Mountcastle signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates this year.
Mhm. Sure.
Ryan Mountcastle could bat 260, hit 35 homers, and slug in the mid 900s. And what's going to happen, or have an OPS in the mid 900s? And Shohei Ohtani could hit 30 home runs and bat 250. Ryan
Mhm.
Mountcastle has objectively had the better season. But I can tell you who's going to be representing the MLB in terms of their starting DH if that exact situation happens.
Right.
It's not going to be the player that's had the better season. It's going to be Shohei Ohtani. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with designing this for entertainment. But for so long, people have treated these games, and the Pro Bowl especially, as something that means a lot for your career in terms of making Hall of Fames and things such
Mhm.
as that. And it's just not something that's applicable anymore.
No. No. And it's there things don't run in cycles. I mean, uh, it's like Hall of Fame voting. We talked about Hall of Fame voting. I really have problems with the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Okay,
Hmm.
because that's sports writers alone.
Yeah.
There's nothing else goes into that. No players get involved in it or vote in it. Only the guys who are in the hall have
Yeah.
the opportunity to vote. But it's all Major League Baseball writers.
Hmm.
And my argument has been, at least in the last 10 years, the amount of Major League Baseball writers who actually are beat writers has declined tremendously.
Hmm.
And most of these guys, quite frankly, in fairness, don't pay attention to the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And you don't, what bothered me was they didn't have broadcasters involved. I mean,
Hmm.
Bob Costas didn't have a vote for the All Star game. I mean, I'm sorry, for the Hall of Fame. Give me a
Hmm.
break. Al Michaels, Bob Costas, Vin Scully, those guys didn't get. I mean, they saw every player, you know, hell, Scully from 1952 to, to 2000 and what, 14 saw,
Hmm.
saw how many games is that? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so he doesn't get a vote, and a guy who is a beat writer for the Tampa Bay, Times, who saw, who's seen the Rays for 4 years gets a vote.
Yeah, and like they some of these guys make these ballots public post,
Yeah.
and that's a horrible career move for them because they don't know what they're doing. Like some of the voting that these guys put out
Hmm.
in terms of their Hall of Fame voting, you look at it and you go, how is this guy voting? Like what has he done to deserve this vote for the Hall of Fame for the
Hmm.
most prestigious thing in baseball? And this is what he's doing with it. Like, what are we doing here? So there is that. And I mean, you like the NFL. Bill Belichick didn't make the Hall of Fame like yesterday. That news broke that an 8-time Super Bowl champion head
Hmm.
coach is not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's a little more political, but it still stands. So I just feel like we look at these things for everything that they're not. Like there was a large contingent of people because as I've gathered through looking at some of this stuff over the last couple of days, there's two camps in terms of what you think about Shador Sanders, and you either love him or you absolutely can't stand him, and like
Hmm.
there's just only pure extremes on both sides, like the purest of extremes on both sides in terms of this. Like he's such a decisive figure. But what are you getting all up in arms about? Would be my question for Shador Sanders making the Pro Bowl. Why did an average rookie quarterback, is he going to ruin your flag football game that's coached by the Mannings? Your exhibition flag football game that's coached by the Mannings? No, he's not. Like that has no bearing. But because of the way the Pro Bowl has been treated and the way that the common public perception of it is, yeah, it's thought of as a big thing. Like this is supposed to be a big thing, absolutely. But when you look at Shador Sanders stats, they don't match up to what the public perception of the Pro Bowl is.
One thing, we were talking about NFL Hall of Fame. The NFL Hall of Fame voters, each city has a voter representing their franchise,
Hmm.
and what they do is they vote. The media in that market votes on who is their representative.
Hmm.
Now, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for a number of years, it's been Ira Kaufman. Ira was a columnist for the Tampa Tribune until it didn't exist any longer. But he still is a columnist for actually uh, a place called Pewter Report, which is a you know a an online website. Okay,
Hmm.
I and because of Ira's vast understanding of football and knowledge of football, he has continued to hold that that position even after moving. And I give the NFL credit. I mean, that takes when you move somebody from a newspaper to a website, but you're giving that website and that person credibility. I think that to me is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, Scott Garceau for the Baltimore Ravens
Hmm.
has got that job. Scott is, for many years was the broadcast voice of the Baltimore Ravens and the Baltimore Orioles, and so Scott got has been given that opportunity. I think that the NFL looks at that, and by the way, the NFL also Peter King, a number of guys who cover the league are involved, and
Hmm.
what they do on a on the day before the Super Bowl is they sit down at a hotel and the nominees are presented.
Hmm.
They stand up and they make a presentation. Um, you and I, if we were in that room and you wanted to make a reason you would like to nominate Matthew Stafford, you would stand up and say, I'm Matthew. I'm representing Atlanta. Um, but I would like, you don't have to make, by the way, you don't have to make the case for your guy, for a guy
Hmm.
from your your organization. You can make it for anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So you stand up and you say, okay, I would like to make the case for why Matthew Stafford should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So for the next 10 minutes, you make that case. And then, everybody sits down. When you sit down, everybody votes. If you've made the case and you get the votes, then that's where we go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the fact that it's not just writers, the fact that the way it's done is you stand up and you make the case for the person and why they should or should not be should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that's a much fairer deal than just casting a vote where you don't have to make any case for the person
Mm-hmm.
or argument as to why when that there's heated debates in these things, as you might imagine, where somebody says, well, I don't think Matt deserves it. And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got debate from both sides saying, here's why I think, here's why you think, and there is crosstalk and serious debate about each and every one of these players. That doesn't happen, in other sports where all it is you cast a vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, baseball.
So
There
I
was.
think the NFL is. I'm sorry, I just meant to just to finish it. I just think the NFL, that opportunity to sit there and make it the case as to why that person deserves it, and then defend it, I
Mm-hmm.
think is much more of a fairer way to to get somebody into the Hall of Fame versus just casting a ballot and you have you don't have to explain why you did it. You just do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a case a couple years ago when Ichiro Suzuki was up for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
There was one guy who left Ichiro off of his ballot
Right.
that prevented him from being a unanimous,
Hmm.
first ballot Hall of Famer. Something that throughout his career he had earned and
Hmm.
deserved. But there was one writer who chose not to vote Ichiro in, chose not to publicize his ballot, and doesn't have to answer for the criticism. To be honest with you, that he is due. Like that guy was due criticism for leaving Ichiro off the ballot, whatever reason he may have,
Hmm.
because there's just no good case. But again, it's a faceless thing where you don't have to answer for your choices. There's countless problems throughout sports where
Hmm.
people get up in arms and about that. But that's one of the things. Is like this guy made a horrible, like that's a horrible decision. Take whatever you want to call it, to not let Ichiro on that in unanimously on that ballot.
Hmm.
But he made it, and he doesn't have to answer for it. And I think that's part of a big problem that baseball's gotten it wrong in terms of their postseason stuff.
It's funny. Ira had a funny story about um, some of the guys um, Ira's the one who nominated Steve Sable, who of NFL Films, to
Hmm.
get into the Hall of Fame. You could argue, and I would argue personally, having worked with and that you could not have met a nicer man than Steve Sable.
Hmm.
The NFL, without NFL Films and the Sable family,
Hmm.
and specifically Steve, because of he was in charge of the look of the films and the whole routine. You could argue the NFL wouldn't be what the NFL is if it wasn't for NFL Films, and
Hmm.
how they took casual fans and made them fans because of how they did, the highlights films as well as all the number of other films that they did.
Hmm.
Um, and yet here's a guy who they had to argue to get him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But you know, it, it- but the fact was they debated it and they got it done.
Yeah.
So you know, the person, if I'm not mistaken, the person who left Ishiro off the ballot was, I don't know if they were ever found out, but I do know that through somehow the rationale was that no one deserves to get, in this person's opinion, I should say, no one deserves to get 100% of the vote. So that was the reason. Okay, that's about as petty as you can get, but okay, fine. That's your
Yeah.
reason. But you don't have to defend it, as you said earlier.
No, like there's no judiciary process for you
No.
making that decision. Which honestly, they're probably like some of these guys. I think you, for the most part, you can objectively, like, people can objectively state when a ballot is just horrible. Like when you see
Mhm.
one and you're like, good God, what are they doing? Type of
Right.
deal. Like if you see a ballot and just using like they just chose Chase Utley and Dustin Pedroia and every other second baseman on that list. Like, all right, I think we understand what this guy was doing. Like,
Mhm.
let's have him answer some questions. That's not a process that happens in this, and there's no accountability for it. So you can go on kind of really voting how you want to vote, because who's going to stop you? Who's going to ask you questions? No one.
No. And at the end of the day, the person that's getting punished for this is the player.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, like, it, how can that be true when we've had unanimous first ballot Hall of Famers in the recent past? Like Derek Jeter was a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. Where was this guy when that happened? So, you know,
Well, the other thing too, and this has always been a bother to me, is when you look at the most valuable player in baseball. We'll go just do a quick slide over. It's never a defensive guy.
mm-mm.
You know, it's
No,
always it's always the guy who puts up the best numbers.
yeah,
Meanwhile, if you look at if you look at what the metrics of some of this stuff is, why for many years Bill Mazeroski, who had one of the greatest was one of the greatest second basemen of all time. You could argue that he and Brooks Robinson were the two best players defensively of their life, of that era in baseball on the infield.
mm-hmm.
Yet, yet it was Brooks got in because he was in the World Series a number of years,
Yeah,
and people saw him. Mazeroski didn't get in because he played in Pittsburgh where they didn't see him.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like that, the same cases can be made. I can give it to you this year. This year, Bobby Witt Jr. won the Platinum Glove Award,
Right,
the AL.
and deserved it.
But I can go back and I can show you Cedon Rafaela's stats where he blows him out of the water in terms of his defensive WAR and overall
Hmm.
metrics and how valuable he was in center field to the Red Sox.
Sure.
Like but it's voted on by the fans. What do the fans know? Like, why are the fans voting for the Platinum Glove? Again, this is a career-defining
Hmm.
achievement for a lot of players. Why are fans voting on it? Fans are biased. Fans
Hmm.
cannot make a rational choice when presented with numbers because a lot of times their ideas are just going to go back. This player plays for my favorite team. Bobby Witt Jr. is one of the most popular players in the Major League Baseball.
Hmm.
Get that? He plays a really, really good defensive shortstop, and they
Right.
deserved a Gold Glove this year. But he didn't deserve the Platinum Glove by numbers. Like, he just didn't. But it
Hmm.
was voted on by fans, and guess who's the most popular Gold Glover this year? It was Bobby
Hmm.
Witt Jr. So, and the same goes for Fernando Tatis in right field out there in
Right.
San Diego. Like, he had a pretty good defensive season, but he wasn't a Platinum Glove winner. But he did win it this year.
A
So,
lot. The other part of that, Matt, is a lot of people do not take into consideration where these guys play in the stadium.
yes, the ballparks
Okay,
matter in baseball.
the ballparks really matter, especially if you're the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're an outfielder in Major League Baseball, there are center fields that seem like football fields. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of space out in center field. Um, there was a great line by the late Vin Scully about Gary Matthews, who used to play center field for the Philadelphia Phillies. He goes, two-thirds of the world is covered by water. The other third is covered by Gary Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's easy to say that this guy did a great job at one, in left field, right field, or whatever. But it's you're a Red Sox fan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun to play left field at Fenway Park.
No, the saying is in Boston is you need two center fielders in order to be able to play center field and right field,
Hmm.
successfully. Like playing right field in Fenway Park versus playing right field in the Bronx. Those are
Hmm.
two wildly different things, wildly different things. But again, that's not something that the fans look at. That's not a metric that they have necessarily readily available for them to look at, and it's not something that you care about when you're able to click on a link and just pick your favorite player and click submit vote. Like that's the process. I voted on the Platinum Glove. That's the process that it
Right.
goes through. It's
No.
not difficult. You don't even have to enter your email, I don't think.
Doc, when Doc Roberts out in Los Angeles decides who's going to play left field at Dodger Stadium, and you think, oh, no, who cares? It's going to be it's going to be it's either going to be Teoscar or someone else, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be Kiki or Teoscar, so pick your Hernandez. And the rationale is if you look at that park, the there is a small section of left field where the actual fence is only about 4 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small little area,
Yep.
but if you don't know what you're doing playing that, you're gonna let a ball that's 6 feet up there. I mean, you could perhaps jump and catch it.
Yeah.
Instead of coming off the wall, turns out to be a home run.
Yep.
And the same thing, if I'm not mistaken, in Fenway when you're playing in right field in Fenway. You
That
got the
is true
pesky
for
pole, you got all that little funky stuff out
yeah.
there.
It's true for the Angels as well. The Angels have both those
But
corners.
no, yeah, over at Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's a lot of places where they've got the funkiness of the in Houston was it the Crawford box.
Yep.
Okay. In left field where a fly ball could be a home run because it goes high enough to reach the Crawford box as opposed to hitting the fence.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's similar to Fenway Park's wall as well.
Hmm.
There's so many different stadiums, and that's like, again, that's a thing. Like when you get to the end, have people looked at, like you're talking Hall of Fame here. Have we looked at a pitcher's what if he had a 3.28 career ERA, but he
Hmm.
was pitching in one of the least friendly pitchers ballparks, as
And
opposed to
there,
this guy who had he had a 2.89, but he was pitching in one of the friendliest pitchers ballparks there is. Like that makes a difference as well. And,
if you
and
want to, yeah, if you want to get a Cy Young award, just because of the park, go
mhm,
to San Francisco.
yeah, or
That's a
Seattle,
park.
both of them.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean those are monsters.
Hmm.
Besides the fact that if you go out and look at that park, and it's a gorgeous park,
Hmm.
it, it's it's got some very funky, you know, quirky things to it in
Yeah,
center field and in right field, and the walls are tall, high, and it's hard to get. It's not hard to hit a ball for a base hit there. It's hard to hit a ball out of there.
yep,
But you look at Fenway, right? We talk again going back to your part. You go out, and unfortunately, most people can't do this, and I understand that. But you can do this with your binoculars if you go to the park. You can actually even tour the park. They used to. I think they still do that. They
they
on
do.
off days when the teams out of town they give tours.
Yep, they do.
Take a look at that fence in left field. There's dents all over it.
Hmm.
You can see where balls actually have dented the thing. So you know that it's not like they replace that wall every year. That wall stays there, and there's dents in it from balls that have been hit hard that bounced off the fence.
Yep, yeah.
So there aren't you can go anywhere else in baseball. You're not going to find dents in the wall of the ballpark.
No, no. Maybe the Crawford boxes. That might be where you
No,
find
maybe I
it.
guess.
But yeah, no, it's everything is different, and that's why the fans. I get the need to have the fan involvement. The fan involvement is obviously important
Sure.
because that's who makes the whole machine go, right? Like you're making these moves for fan engagement for these games, right? But again, if you're going to have fan voting and you're going to do this for fan engagement, for
Mhm.
entertainment, it cannot be something that is a career defining accolade. It just can't.
Mhm.
because sometimes people are going to love guys and sometimes people are going to hate guys. And you can't be held, like it shouldn't be held against somebody. The fact, like, if they played most of their career for the Chicago White Sox while they were bad versus playing for Boston or New York or LA, like that shouldn't matter. If you put up the similar numbers, if you put up better numbers, you should be treated as the same. But the matter of the fact is that it doesn't happen, nor will it most likely ever happen. That people are able to take the blinders off and realize these things for what they truly are.
Well, look, if you just if you said, look, a third of the vote is a fan vote, and a third of the vote is the writers' vote, and a third of the vote is broadcasters and former players or whatever, that I could live with,
Hmm.
because that would be fairer. There's nobody who knows who best plays this game more than the guys who play this game.
Hmm.
And there used to be a way that they could vote, but you couldn't vote for a teammate. So, in other words, you would be able to vote, but it had to be for a guy on another team. Now,
Yeah.
of course, there's always still going to be popularity contests. That's always going to factor into it.
Hmm.
There's always going to be a guy who makes the All Star team. I mean, look at there. How many times did Brett Favre make All Pro that he certainly never deserved it? But he
Yeah.
was Brett Favre.
Yeah.
You can't leave him off the team. That's according
Mhm.
to other people.
Yep.
And that was a problem for Matt. Matt was in a position where he was in a division that first he first he started off against Favre, then he ended up with Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
he was stuck in a middling place that
right,
was Detroit for a while.
and Detroit wasn't doing as well as they are now,
Hmm.
and so he was the victim of a market that people didn't look at necessarily because they weren't winning as much, and he was in his own conference, in his own division. He was facing the guys who, with Green Bay, having that helmet on is going to get you points.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I go back to because it wasn't just the one season that I pointed out for
Hmm.
Matthew Stafford. When you look at the Pro Bowl and the way things shook out, the one that he had while he was in Detroit, I believe it was one of, if not his best record, and while he was at Detroit. He made the Pro Bowl that year. But then you look at it and you look at like a 3 year stretch, and the next 3 years that Matthew Stafford played in Detroit, he put up better numbers than he did in his Pro Bowl season in Detroit.
Right.
The of the two Pro Bowl seasons that he's had in LA, one of them
Hmm.
is this year, which is most likely going to be an MVP season, and the other one's a year that, again, you go back to his numbers in Detroit, and he probably had five, six, maybe seven better seasons during his time in Detroit than he did for that one Pro Bowl appearance that he had in LA.
Hmm.
But but there's just there's no defining way to look at it, and it's obvious that it's a popularity contest because that year came after Matthew Stafford had won a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford was a household name in 2023. The same couldn't be said. Like, is he a household name? Yeah, kind of, but he's also the quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And when you're going 7-9 or 9-7 every year, then it just doesn't move the needle as a guy who gets recognition for the performance they put on.
I'm going to say something, and I don't want to get into the position of saying that it's equal. Okay, so I'm going to give you that disclaimer right off the bat. Um, in my career, I've been fortunate enough. I've won 7 Emmy awards.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, of those 7 Emmy awards, 4 of them I didn't think I deserved,
Yeah.
but I did think of the 26 nominations that there were years that I didn't win, that I thought,
Mhm.
how did I lose to that guy,
Yeah.
or that person? That was not my best work,
Yeah.
but this, I'm getting an award for something I was stunned a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
This is the one that won?
Yeah.
So you do, as a player, and again, it's not apples to apples by any stretch of imagination, because again, it's a vote from your peers, and so it is what it is. Um, but I'm quite certain that there were times when some of these players wondered, they had worked their ass off and didn't make it, and then they got it later, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this wasn't my best year,
Yeah.
but I'll take it." But it wasn't my best year.
Well, I mean, I think you asked Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen would tell you, like, I'm sure he's very glad that he won his MVP last year. I
Hmm.
think he'd be the first to tell you that was not his best season in the NFL
Hmm.
in terms of his numbers, and
Sure.
that he probably was maybe not surprised that he got it, but given the fact that it wasn't his best year, he would have thought he would have won one of his better years as
Hmm.
opposed to last year, but he didn't. Like, that's just the way it panned out. So it happens in awards all the time, and we
Hmm.
just missed the mark on who is actually the best player based on what they've done throughout the
Hmm.
year. It seems
Yeah,
like all the time with these awards.
more often than not, unfortunately,
Hmm.
it seems that way. Well, tomorrow I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to talk about it today, but we have time, and that's the portal.
Hmm.
There's a downside to the portal, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. Here's a staggering number to think about. In over all divisions in football, and we're talking about FBS being, of course, the one that we all focus on, but this is going all the way down to Division 3. There were 5,000 kids who entered the portal this season. That's an all-time record.
Hmm.
And we all know that this was the only portal. There's not the two portals anymore. There's only one. So what we're going to talk about tomorrow is how, because tomorrow, 48 hours from now ish, a little more than 48 hours from now, everything closes. It's
Hmm.
over. Now, for Matt, you at Georgia, that ended 16th of the month, I believe,
Yep.
for Georgia. So there's 75% of the Power Four conferences teams. It's the door shut
Hmm.
now. Their 24/7 estimates that 1,500 or more will not be asked back to the dance from that standpoint. Will not be
Hmm.
picked. We're going to talk tomorrow about where do they go, what is their options with 48 hours left, or at that time tomorrow when we meet with you guys, a
Hmm.
little over 24 hours will be there because it's midnight on Friday night. So we'll talk about what happened, who's still out there, what happens. Now, again, if you're still there, there are options, and there's the summer school option.
Hmm.
But you miss the entire spring practice, which pretty much sets a roster in most college situations. So we'll have some fun with that tomorrow. There's a dark side to this portal, and many times, uh, and we've talked about this before, and we'll close on this, but many times people who tell you that you are better than you are and you need to leave this because there's better options out there are not looking forward to your best interest if you're a player. They're
Hmm.
looking for what they think is your best interest. And, it can come back and bite you. So we'll have to see how that works out. But tomorrow we're going to focus on the portal because, it's way too early to start talking Super Bowl yet. And then we're going to start talking some baseball too. So tomorrow we'll talk portal, and then next week we'll start a little bit of the easing into the Super Bowl week, and also by that time we should know some very interesting things about what's going on in baseball because we're only 2 weeks away from for spring training starting for some pitchers coming to to camp. So
Yep.
it's and we got the World Baseball Classic,
Absolutely. That's something big to look forward to in
and
baseball
it's
as
a lot of fun. I mean,
well.
I'm a big proponent of that. So
Yeah.
we'll see all that. So between Matt and I, we'll talk to you tomorrow about a bunch of fun stuff. Until then, have a wonderful day. Stay warm wherever you are, and stay safe. Take care. Bye bye. And still goodbye. Sorry. I don't know how I keep